Hello and welcome to the Divine Self-Care Interview Series. This is Elena Lipson, your Divine Self-Care Mentor, and I am so excited to welcome you to today's interview for many, many reasons, which I will share in a minute. But this is the interview series where I get to pull in amazing people doing incredible work in the world and really ask them the questions that I find important, like what does it take to show up every day? What does it take to keep the energy up? What rituals of self-care do you do that maybe you're not calling self-care rituals, but I'm calling them that, and I want to know what they are. Learning those lessons of showing up, what it takes to, keep showing up as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. It takes a lot of energy and courage to keep showing up every day, and self-care has been one of those tools for me. So I always want to know what works for you. And today I'm so excited to welcome the media bombshell, Ellie Scarborough-Brett. And not only is she beautiful and just radiant, she's also super smart and has done a lot. She's been a news broadcaster, and she has started her own company called Pink Kisses, which was helping women to overcome heartbreak. And within a month, she was featured on the Today Show and New York Times and Shape Magazine, and there was others that I can't even remember at the moment. So I want to know how she did it, and then now her life is a little different. So we're going to find out about how self-care plays a role in that. So Ellie, why don't you introduce yourself, share what is lighting you up at the moment and what you're working on that is amazing in the world.
Well, I believe that every single one of us has a message to share and a story to offer that is incredibly valuable. And I believe that the way that each of us will tell our story is so unique. And that is something that should be cherished. And I am on a mission to give people the tools to be able to uncover that unique voice that only they have to offer, and then to share their content with the world in a way that really connects and makes them stand out.
I love that. I love it. It's like that hero's journey, that Joseph Campbell, idea that every life is here to be lived in a way that then teaches other people, right? So I totally agree with that. And I love the intro video on your website where you pull out the megaphone and you're like, your voice, is just so big and needs to be shared, and you have your story. I think once you can tap into that, it really changes everything, and realizing that your story can really change other lives. And so I want to know what led you to this place and how you're able to do it all. And then recently you mentioned you're a mom now. So
I'm a new mom to a 10-month-old little maniac. His name is Campbell, and he is just into everything right now. And so my journey is, I could start in a million different places, but I was a reporter. I was working for NBC for almost a decade. And I had one of those life-altering events, that makes you question everything. And for me, that was a heartbreak. I was together with this guy. It was sort of one of those bad addiction relationships where I knew it wasn't good for me, but I couldn't help myself. And he broke up with me, and it broke my heart. And what it did was, I had everything going for me on paper. I had hit every single one of my professional goals. I was a lead nightside reporter in a top 10 television market, which in the TV world, that's a big deal. I was already interviewing with national like CNN and MSNBC and places to actually go to the next level. And I wasn't even 30 yet, and I had done this whole career, done everything really well, and yet I was deeply unhappy and deeply unsatisfied. And it wasn't until I went through the heartbreak that I was able to look at the rest of my life as well and start asking questions like, what do I really want? What would it look like to me to be happy? And what do I have to offer other than the only career I've ever known, which is being a reporter? And so that was the moment that I decided to leave. And at the time, because heartbreak was so relevant for me and I had just been through it, and I knew that there had to be something more to it. Like I knew that what I needed didn't exist when I was going through it. So I created a business to actually have what wasn't there for me be there for other women. So it was this sort of pull yourself up by your bootstraps, get on with your life, kind of really fun, innovative business that allowed people to take back their life and to look at what they wanted to prioritize and who they wanted to be next. And I had things like a way to upload a photo of your ex and watch it burn. I had text messages that went out for 90 days. They were called the Betty Plan. And every day there would be a step to take to get over your ex. And I had little text messages that would be sent to your phone because, you know, when you go through a breakup, you're always staring at your phone, waiting for the guy or girl to call and looking like, why hasn't he done this yet? And so I thought instead I would send text messages that were a lot more about you. So there would be things like, you were like a diamond, stunning, sparkling, and damn hard to break. And just little uplifting notes. And as I decided to leave news and launch this business, which was a huge leap for me, I knew it was like I had this moment, like 3 months before launch, where it just hit me. I knew that my voice was my biggest differentiator. And one of the things I really had going for me was that I had been in news for almost a decade, and I had the ability to share my story in a really concise and compelling way. And so I started to look for opportunities to do that. The one that I really wanted the most was the Today Show, right? Because that was what I thought, what did I watch growing up? Like, what did I actually enjoy watching? And it was the Today Show. Every morning, my mom would turn it on in the kitchen as we were getting ready for school, and that was what I would watch. And still, you know, as I was in news and then out of news, it was what I was watching. And so I ended up, as you mentioned, within a month of launch, sitting across from Kathy Lee and Hoda in my second interview about my business, a month after launch. Talk about feeling like you're not ready yet, you know? It was such great practice. And after that, that opened up a lot of other doors for me, like Shape Magazine, Wall Street Journal, New York Times. A lot of other things happened. And something even cooler happened, which was that people started asking me not just about how to get over heartbreak, but also how was I doing that? How was I getting these opportunities? And not even so much getting them, but then how was I really using every second of the interview to great effect? And then how was I using it after the interview to continue to build momentum? And that's when I realized there was a real need for this, for people to not only know how to share their message in interview forums or in short video forms, because I was also doing that at the time, but also how to deliver when you have only 3 minutes, and then how to use that afterwards. So that's really how Media Bombshell was born, which I've been doing now for several years, had clients all over the world, and have just a wonderful array of different kinds of visionaries, authors, creatives, coaches, all types that I get to help do this work.
Awesome. Okay, so it's very easy to say, oh, look, she was a news reporter and she used that fame to start this amazing thing that then blew up in a month. But I see something totally different, because it was actually super easy for you to take that, that notoriety that you already had and to just start a website, a business, whatever it was. But the really brilliant thing that you did was you used a real situation in your life and you turn it into a very specific niche. I mean, there's no doubt if someone goes on there and they don't have an ex that broke their heart, they're going to go somewhere else. But people recognize themselves instantly. And so you like almost intuitively knew that using your story, using what you were going through and fueling, helping other people is sort of where that sweet spot is, right? And so I think that's probably, not only are you beautiful and radiant and charismatic and all the things that you can teach people how to do on camera, you already had that practice, but you really zoned in on something very courageous, which is shutting everything else out and taking your story and really using that to be the megaphone and to be out there. So that's amazing that you sort of did that already without even knowing, right?
Well, yeah, and actually it was very conscious, because if you think about it, as a reporter for years, I had been focused on telling other people's stories. And that was all I did. I took, hours of footage and I condensed it into a minute and a half. And that's all I had to share on camera, right? I would intro it, I would outro it, I would pull all sound bites from different places. So I knew I had the skill set to condense, but what was really scary was actually putting myself out there, sharing my own story. And that's what I now help all my clients see the value in, that piece that's vulnerable, the vulnerability factor of actually being real. Like I just sent out in my newsletter today, I actually revealed wanting to hide, how we all have those times where we feel like hiding. Yeah. It doesn't matter who you are, how many times I've been live in front of millions of people or on stage in front of hundreds of people. That doesn't mean that we're not going to have those moments of vulnerability where we feel like hiding. And it's knowing how to share those pieces that actually bring the biggest insights for your audience.
Okay, so there's definitely strategy to it. So I want to hear a little bit more about what you shared behind the scenes, that there's a course coming up, but I want to pause that for a second. But I'm actually super interested because I feel like you're talking to the women that are in my circle, in my tribe, who are all trying to find a way to share their story and not hide. And it's probably the most difficult thing to do. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. But I want to also change gears and hear, like, how is it possible to keep showing up? For me, it's self-care. So that's really what I want to hear. What works for you? What is the thing that keeps you, smiling and coming back and feeling like you have the energy and the courage to keep showing up every day? What does self-care mean to you in your life?
So it's interesting because what keeps me showing up for my work is actually the knowledge that there's so many brilliant voices out there that aren't being heard. So I'm not sure, if you were to ask me to define self-care, I would probably go somewhere else, but I love that you're stretching this for me because I've never thought about it in that way. For me, I think that self-care took a major turn once I had my child. It's interesting because I think I was probably the most conscious of how I was taking care of my spirituality, my body, my emotional state when I was pregnant. Never before had it occurred to me that I needed to be so tuned in to every piece of my being because I was harboring another being. And so it then shifted from this thing that I should do for myself to this thing that I just had to do, and there was no question. Then, once the baby was born, it was like I allowed the focus to completely shift to caring for him. And I'm sure that this is nothing new for other moms. I'm sure they can all relate to this. But it was really interesting because it probably took me until maybe 2 months ago to add what I would call self-care back in. And what's been fascinating has been my new definition of it, which is that self-care is truly anything that you're doing that in some way benefits and adds to your experience for yourself. And what I found was it was in how I ate. It was in taking the time to get dressed in the morning or shower even on the weekends when I was hanging out with my little 6-month-old. It meant really creating space for myself, even if it was a 5-minute walk. I used to just start with 5 minutes to myself because I didn't have that. And now I do things like every Thursday I go to a luscious 1.5-hour yoga class in the morning. And once a month I have a night out with girlfriends. And I have set time where I know I'm going to have space for just me and to indulge in any way I want. I take baths once a week. I often do things more than that, but I know I have these precious times that are actually set aside in my calendar.
I love that. I love it. All of it. I mean, that broader definition is so powerful because it really it doesn't take out the idea that it could be a walk. It could be time with your friends. It could be a bath. It's all of it. It's really what fills you up and fuels you up. So I'm curious, is there anything that you do each morning as a morning ritual that, whether it's, a really good cup of coffee or something you haven't really thought of as self-care, but really like, oh, I do this every day and I need it and I love it and it fuels me up. Is there something that you do each morning that makes you feel like you're turning yourself on, you're igniting that part of yourself?
Gosh. Well, one thing that I've stopped doing, which is probably self-care, is that I've stopped checking my emails. I used to check them first thing in the morning.
Yes.
And now it's about actually being able to enjoy my family first And so instead of making the emails the priority and then being focused on all the things I have to do once I start working, so then my family's there, but I'm not actually truly present with them. Now, instead, I'm really focused on being present with my family first before I do anything else in the day. And then once the nanny's here and we've shifted to the next phase, then I truly dive in and I actually have a set time to check email in my calendar, and I'm not allowed to touch it before then.
Right. It's so powerful because if you do check it first thing in the morning, then you're opening yourself up to the powers that be, right? In the email, whether it's a client or an event or new news or whatever, it all of a sudden then you start tracking that way instead of what's most important to you, which is your family. So I love that. That's a huge life altering habit in the morning. I can't even emphasize it enough. It will change your energy for the day completely. It'll put you back into control of your life, of your day, and of what you need to do, what's most important. So I totally get it. And being social media addicted myself, I get it. It's not easy, but it's one of those things that really does change everything. And speaking of powers, I love to ask this question because I feel like it's playful, and it also gives us a sense of what you really cherish and treasure about yourself. So do you have something that you would consider to be your superpower?
If I were going to say something, it's probably what I've had other people tell me, and it is that I am a really good listener, and I can hear things that people aren't saying. So one of the things I talk about is that there's a lot of language that's not spoken. I talk about the power of language all the time, and that every time we open our mouths, we have an opportunity to create something. But there's also this whole element of language that happens without even saying a word. And so I think that my superpower is being able to tune into that.
I love it. And that type of intuitive listening is such a huge thing. How many people do we have in our lives that actually get to sit and listen with their heart, right? Not just their ears. So beautiful. Thank you. And then do you have a mantra or a quote that you say or go back to or like to share?
Yeah, I do. It's a Ralph Waldo Emerson quote, and I just love him, but it's what lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us.
Yeah, that's a great one. Beautiful. I'm going to write that below our interview just to allow people to really savor it and let it sink in, because it's true. So beautiful. And yeah, I love it. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
One more question before we get to hear about your course. I think it's super valuable, and I want to make sure that we get a little bit of detail about that, and then I'll post some links below because it's huge to be able to be visible, and we'll get to it. I'm so excited. Okay. What would you say? You've done a lot in your life. You've been, a public figure, visibility in terms of your news anchor role. You've started a business. Now you've started another business. You're working with clients all over the world. You're a mom. There's a lot to be proud of. What would you say you're most proud of right now, where you're sitting from this vantage point in your life?
I think that I'm most proud of the fact that I am creating a life for myself, for my family, with my husband, that I've never seen an example of. So we're creating something based on what we want. We're creating a different way of raising our child, a different way of being in partnership. And I think I'm really proud of the fact that we're not following the blueprint of what our parents did. We're not necessarily doing things the same as our friends. We're really creating our own vision for what we want it to be, and then we're holding each other to it.
I love that. I love it, and I wish you were next door because we feel like so much to talk about. It's so true. It really is like taking back control of how you want it to be in a beautiful, unique, individual way. So I love that. I would be very proud of that, and I'm very proud of that for our own life too. So, and I hope it inspires others to really question, are they following someone else's story without really questioning and without bringing their own unique perspective to the world? So thank you for that. Appreciate it, and awesome. So now I want to ask you, I get to find out a little bit more and share about your course that's coming up, and maybe if you can tell us some, top sizzle points about it, and then who is it for? Who would really benefit from this course?
So let me tell you why I created this course. I came from a world where I was interviewing people, 6 people a day. And I saw all different kinds of interviewees, people who truly understood the power of an interview, people who had no idea but were great at it just because, and people who thought that it was the most precious gift they could be given, but then had no idea how to use it. And so I really got to see just about every potential kind of interviewee. And I got to interview a lot of, like, thousands of people over the years I was a reporter. When I left news and I got into this world of coaching, I really was shocked by how few people understood the power of interviews, how few of us were really aware of how it was just a clean slate to share your message, to inspire and move people, to give people a sense of who you are without ever having met them. And it was this beautiful space that I felt like people, first of all, it wasn't even on their radar. They weren't even thinking about, oh, I could or should be doing this for my business. And then second of all, if they were doing interviews, they weren't clear on how to truly use them to get the most out of them. So it's more of like a why and a how. And then there's always just the pure delivery points and things like that people just didn't have the skill set for, because why would they? And so I created a course called Nail Your Media Interview. And one of the things that I want to be very clear about is this is not just for being on the Today Show, which if you're on the Today Show, it would be amazing for you to have these insights. But this is for being on a blog interview, being on a podcast. There's so many ways now to be interviewed and so many ways to use interviews to grow your business and grow your empire and grow your vision of what you want to create. And so this course was really created because I didn't see people doing that. And who it's for, it's really for anyone who has a message that they want to share and work that they're doing that they truly believe in, but they know that they haven't fully reached their potential. They have more of an audience that they want to reach, and maybe they need a new way to do that. Or maybe they've already been using interviews and other ways of sharing their message, but they just need to up level. They need to figure out how to really make them work for them. Really turn their interviews into a business opportunity every time.
I love that. And I've seen the power of interviews myself. As I mentioned earlier, I did, dozens of interviews in my first year of business and then consistently continue to do them, which is why I started doing them. So I love sharing. I feel like there is something unique about everyone, and people question that sometimes, like, oh, there's a million other people who have my story. Yes and no. I mean, everyone has a story. We're all human. We all have things to share, and no one has your combination of voice and presence. And I mean, I'm sort of watching you during this interview because I know that's your skill set is interviews. So I'm really just your presence and how you speak, and there's so much going into it. I know, like, over years of experience, it really shows. And so I think the more people do it, the more they get comfortable in it, and the more you can see how it can fuel your business, right? So how you share your story can fuel your business. I think what you're offering is super valuable, and I'm like, I think I want it. So because you can always get better. You can always refine it. Every time I do an interview, I find myself leaning more into my own voice and how I want to do it, and not caring about how anyone else does it, which is also a skill set, having that confidence to show up, right, the way you want to show up, so that I'm not like every other person interviewing. So I think that's amazing. Can you give an example of maybe a client who you worked with who you took through the process, and maybe like a before and after? What were they able to accomplish with your help?
Sure. Well, one of my clients who was just on this, who did this course last year, she was a mom and teaches a really juicy online course about parenting. And she was just trying to find other moms. She had this course that all of a sudden had taken her from being local to being online, and she didn't really have an online presence. And so she wanted to use the course to really get known for the work that she was doing. And by the end of the course, she had already figured out how to do pitches, and she was pitching a bunch of different places. She ended up getting a regular post on Huffington Post. She ended up getting a lot of local media, including some TV interviews. And still today, she uses some of the stuff we did together for sales pages, for when she's actually interviewing people. Just like you said, it's both sides of the interview. And even though we're focusing a lot on the interviewee, we also talk about how to connect with an interviewer, how to be a repeat guest, how to not just show up, but really use every second of the interview. And all of those things she was able to put into practice. And I get emails from people, I got one 2 days ago from someone who said, I was just reviewing something from Nail Your Media interview last year and realizing how much it had served me over the year. So I know that this stuff is so valuable. It's so useful beyond. It's a 4-week course, but you'll be able to use this stuff. It's sort of like what I tell people is it's really a skill set. Once you know it, you can't unknow it. Right. And that's the beauty of it.
Absolutely. So, and especially in this era of video and authenticity, people want to get to know you and your voice. And, it's forever, when someone says, oh, I heard you in this interview and it really changed my life. And I thought this, and this. I mean, that's possible if you just go out and share your story. So I want to thank you for sharing your story. And I know that your course I know it's valuable because I've seen the power of interviews in my own business, in the business of my clients, and just being an interviewer now, it's pushing my edges. And I feel like it's a really important thing to continue doing and growing and learning. Even if you're already doing video, there's always more to learn. So I will make sure to share the links to your course below and everyone can check it out. And then your website, where can people find you if they want to know more right now?
MediaBombshell.com.
Perfect. MediaBombshell.com. Below is the link. So go ahead and head over there and check out. I love your intro video. It's so awesome. You're gorgeous, first of all. So it's just really fun to watch you. Your energy is contagious. So thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want to share before we sign off?
I just have to say that I am so in love with your message of self-care.
Thank you.
It's so important because I think even before I had a baby, we talked a lot about that shift, but I was totally ignoring a lot of the self-care. Now, at least I'm aware that I'm ignoring it, but I think that the message that you give, how it is such a huge part of everything we do, especially how we show up every single day. Yeah. It's just so valuable. And I really have appreciated getting to hear your message.
Thank you. Can I ask you one question, just a quick one, because I do speaking and things like that. And what I really love about what you're doing, this is totally impromptu, but your voice has such resonance and such clarity. Do you have any tips in terms of breath work or, what do you do to help your voice? I'm sure it's something you were more conscious of in the beginning and probably don't even know you're doing so well right now, but you are. How do you keep your voice fresh and resonating and powerful?
So I think the biggest thing for me is, and this is something that's been coming up for us today, but really being present in the moment and allowing myself to fully feel whatever I'm saying. And what you hear that sounds probably really good to you is that I do have a lot of emotion behind my voice. And I think as women, especially, we're trained to ignore the emotion or push it aside. And that's really what adds the life to your voice. So if I could say just one thing for people to begin thinking about, if they like what they're hearing, it's to really try to put as much of your emotion behind everything you say. You have to really feel it and you have to really mean it. Or that's going to be really obvious to people if it's fake. But if it is authentic and you are really feeling it, then go ahead and put all that emotion in and it'll make a huge difference.
I love it. Thank you. I can totally hear it. I mean, it sounds authentic. Obviously, I can feel what you're saying and the power behind the words. So I'm going to practice that. I feel like I probably do some of that naturally anyway, because I feel like, when you're drawn to doing this, you're sort of a natural communicator. But again, there's always more skill that you can acquire. So feeling your words, I'm going to work on it because I have a keynote coming up. So I need to feel those words. So thank you so much. I'm totally inspired and lit up by your energy. And I know it's going to come through to everyone listening. So thank you so much for being with us. I will make sure that everyone has all your links. And I think there's more to talk about. So I might just invite you back again in the future. And I know we'll stay connected and love your work. And I can't wait to check out your course as well. And thank you to everyone listening today. I hope you got some nuggets of gold in terms of self-care, of course, but also how to show up and how to really follow your story, allow your story to be your message, to trust that you do have something to share. So if you were inspired and are taking something away, share it in the comments below and we'll make sure to reply to that. Are you ready to share your story? I hope you were inspired too, because that is what we're here to do, to share that nugget inside of us and allow it to inspire others. So this is Elena Lipson and Ellie Scarborough-Brett coming to you from the Divine Self-Care Interview Series, and we'll see you next time. Take care.